Okay, so if you just type in SurveyJS on Google, this is where the first link should bring you. So that's the official page for SurveyJS NPM library. So as you can see, we can use this library to build our own form management system. And not only forms, we can do a lot of the things with this. We can build quizzes and surveys and whatnot. So now you can go ahead and click on the View Demos tab and go take a tour and get the look and feel of how the library works. And you can just go ahead and play with it basically if you want. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to use the free version, but you also have other versions available, the paid ones. And if you want, you can go ahead and take a look at the different pricing policy and the features that they provide. So I'm going to use the runner version, which is the free one. And I just noticed the price is in euro right now, but if you just click on the USD tab, it's going to show you the price in USD. Okay. Let's go and take a look at the documentation. That's what we're going to need to build our code. And now, with the greatest tool on earth available to a coder, the documentation, of course, let's get coding. Okay, to code an example with SurveyJS, I'm going to use the Stackblitz online IDE. So I found out about this online IDE in one of the Google I/O events. I don't remember if it was like last year or the year before that. But anyways, Stackblitz is a really good platform. Why I use it a lot, I mean, for just quick examples and codes. As you can see, you have support for everything JavaScript, right? You can also build the backend using Node.js. You can build the front end using a lot of different libraries and different frameworks available in the front end. So this gives you a builder project, right? So you don't have to do everything from scratch. So that is reason number one that I like to use it for quick projects. And also you can connect it with GitHub. So like, as you can see, I have signed into the Stackblitz platform right now with my GitHub account, right? So you can build the code here, but you can also upload the code on your GitHub profile and manage the code there. And reason number two is, as you might have known about other online IDEs as well, right? So what sets this Stackblitz IDE apart? Basically, the other IDEs, what they do is they compile the code on their server, right? So every time you code and you render something on the browser, everything has been compiled and stored on a server, and you get your files and everything from your server, right? So there's some latency involved. But with Stackblitz, you are able to compile the code on your browser. So yes, even Node.js is being compiled on your browser. So that makes it more optimized and faster to run your code. Okay, enough talking about Stackblitz. We're here to do an example with SurveyJS, and that's what we're going to go to. So I'm going to use SurveyJS with Angular. And if I go back on the documentation, you'll see that probably even on the first page, on the home page, you might have noticed that SurveyJS is developed for like different libraries and frameworks, right? So I'm going to use it with Angular because, you know, on this channel, we're great Angular fans. So I'm going to click on Angular on Stackblitz and voila, there you go. Stackblitz has provided me with a starter Angular project with some dummy code. So as I was saying, if I want an NPM package, I'm going to just enter the name of the package here, and Stackblitz will take care of downloading and installing it for me. So I'm going to just type in Survey Angular because that's the package I'm going to work with. And I can show you that if you go on the SurveyJS website, you click on Angular and go to the form library because that's what we're building here. And then you can go to get started with SurveyJS, click on Angular, and that's the NPM package, Survey Angular, right? So this is what I'm going to install here, and I'm going to hit enter and look at that. Look at Stackblitz Go and installing the dependency for me. So I don't even have to write any npm commands. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so the dependency is installed. As you can see, the version is right here. Angular has recompiled the code as well. Okay, let's go ahead and see the next step, and that's what we're going to implement. So the next step is to configure the styles. So there's two kinds of styles that SurveyJS is shipped with, the modern style and the default V2 UI style. So you can see the default V2 looks like that, and the modern style looks something like this. So I don't know about you, but I prefer the modern style. So I'm going to configure this style here. So what I simply need to do is go to angular.json. I'm going to find the styles field. So it's right here. And I'm going to add the style that I want for my survey, right? Which is the modern.css. So that's what I'm going to add here in the angular.json file, right? So once that's done, that means we have imported, or we're going to use the modern style for our survey. So they're going to appear like this, the first one, the modern style. So coming back to the component.ts file. Okay, so the next step we're going to do is describe or define a model. So the model would be basically what we're going to put in our form or our survey. So the kind of questions that we want to put, the content, and also the types of responses we're going to allow. Now, like any other Angular project, I'm going to just go here and first import the model and the survey ng classes from the survey Angular package. Okay, so the model, of course, is going to help me create the model, and the survey ng will help me display the survey, to render the survey on the screen. And yes, I'm going to need another class, which will be my styles manager. So this styles manager class is going to help me apply the modern theme to my surveys. So you just go style manager, apply theme. I'm going to use this method, and I'm going to provide the argument modern, just to tell the project that we're going to use the modern theme from the survey Angular library. Okay, so this is all good. I don't need to change the default settings here. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is implement the onInit interface here. So onInit also stands for on initialization. So what I want to do basically here is that as soon as my component first loads or first gets initialized, I want to display my survey. And as you can see, as soon as I did implement my interface, it started giving me an error here. So the error says app component incorrectly implements interface onInit and property ng onInit is missing. Okay, so what do I need to do to fix this error? Yes, you guessed it right. So I need to just create the ng onInit method. There you go. I'm going to create this and just keep it blank for now. I'm going to fill in the body of this method later on. But essentially what I want to do here is I wanted to display my survey, right? But to display my survey, first I need to have the survey in the first place, right? So I need to create a model first. We discussed model before. So now we're just going to work on creating a model or a layout of the survey, right? So let me first show you what our survey or what our form is going to look like. So it's going to look something like this, right? My first survey, that's the title. And then you have an about you section where you have like 4 questions: first name, middle name, last name, sex, male, female, other. So those are your options. And the rest of the questions or the rest of the fields, you have like a text box to answer those fields. But for the 4th question, you have radio buttons. And then you have another section, which is the contact section. That's an optional section. But as you can see, this is a panel, right, which is collapsed by default, but we can open it up. And then you have 2 more questions or 2 more fields, which asks for your LinkedIn or your GitHub profile link. Now, at the end, you have a complete button to submit your survey. So that's what we're going to build, right? So we have to now build a model for the survey, keeping in mind our questions and the types of question and the type of answer we want the user to provide. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to just get rid of this default code for now. And instead of this, I'm going to put a title. So the title was my first survey. So I'm going to use a variable here. And in the HTML file, I'm going to use string manipulation to display the value of this variable on the interface. So let's do that right away. I'm going to go to the app component.html file. And for now, you can see that we have this HTML here. I can just get rid of it. I just want a basic display. So I'm going to just display the title here using string interpolation. And then I'm going to create a div and give it an ID, let's say survey container. That's it. So this div will contain the survey itself. Okay, now my HTML file is set. Let's go back to creating that model we've been talking about. So the model for SurveyJS is kind of in a JSON format, right? So what you got to do is, so let me just name this variable SurveyJSON. And now I'm going to create this object, which will contain different elements, right? So I'm going to put in the elements field. And the elements that I have are like an array of objects. So I can have different objects here. So as you can see, I did have 2 different elements, right? There was a panel, and then there was the first section here, the about you section. So that's what I'm going to do. So I have 2 different kinds of elements here in my element array, right? Each element is an object. Okay, now since it's an object, it can have different fields, right? So first of all, my section was called about you. Name is how you're going to access it in the code, right? So the variable that you're going to use to refer to this. And title is what you're going to see on the screen for this section or this element. Okay, so the name was about, title was about you. So I'm going to create the first section, and it's a type panel. Now, as you can see in this UI here, the first section, about you section, is a panel which has like 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. So there are 4 different subfields or sub elements, as you can say, in the first section. So I'm going to put another field here, element, because I want nested elements here. So again, it will be an array of objects. And now, how many objects do I need to create? I need to create 4 objects, right? Why? Because my first section, so the about you section, has 4 fields. It has 4 questions: first name, middle name, last name, and sex, right? So I'm going to create the first element, which will be the first question here. I'm going to call it first name. That's what I'm going to call it in the code. And I'm also going to display first name. Okay, the type, as I told you, it's a text box, right? So the type is text, and this field is required. So I'm going to mark the is required field for this question as true. Okay, so that completes my first element. Similarly, I'm going to create the second element, the third, and the fourth. What will be the second element? So the second element is going to be the middle name. I'm going to just copy this, paste it here, and just change the text. So this will be called middle name. It's a text, type, and is required true. Do I want to set it to true for middle name? No, right? Because not everyone has a middle name. So I'm going to keep this as optional, not mark it as required. Okay, the final one, right? So I'm going to mark it as a radio group type. Okay, so now you have the radio group ready as well, which will have 3 radio buttons because you gave it 3 choices here, right? And the column count here is 3, right? So as you might have already guessed, each of these choices will be in their own column, right? Because I gave a column count of 3. If there were 5 choices, I would have to give a column count of 5 in order to display these choices one after the other in their own column. Okay, so now the first section, the about you section, is complete. Let's move on to the next section, which was the contact section, right? It was a panel type, so I'm going to give it a name, contact. The title will be contact as well, but I'm just going to put optional just to display it to the user, just to show it to the user that this is an optional section. So by default, I want to put this panel as collapsed, because it's an optional section, so it makes sense, right? It's not going to take a lot of space on your screen if you just keep it collapsed by default. And in case the user needs to add this kind of information, they want to do it, they can always uncollapse it, right? They can always open it up and start filling in the information. So for the first section, the about you section, it was a panel type as well, but as you see that we don't want to keep it as collapsed because this is a required section. So we want to display this information to the user. Okay, now we want to put the elements in here. Again, an array of objects, and it does really have only 2 kinds of elements, right? So the first one is, right, okay, let's start with the name actually, because that's what we were doing so far. So for uniformity, the name will be LinkedIn, and the title that we're going to display should be LinkedIn as well. Okay, and it's a text type. I'm going to copy this and create another element. This element has to be a GitHub link. So I'm just going to say GitHub here in the name and GitHub like that. In the title, and the type has to be text. And of course, we're not going to make them required because it's a part of an optional section. Good. So once you have your model prepared, the next thing that we want to do is to actually use this model to display the survey on the screen, right? Because I am saving my code and I'm refreshing it here. But so far, you're not able to see anything else other than the title we put here, which is my first survey. Now, remember the ng on init method we created here? Now, this will come in handy. Okay, so we're going to just instantiate a new survey object from our model class. And what do you want to pass in here? I want to pass the SurveyJS model that I created right here. So this survey variable is now a pointer. It's a reference to my actual survey. Now, what do I want to do? I want to serve this on the screen. I want to render this on the screen. Remember, we did import the styles manager and the survey ng and the model classes from the survey Angular package. So we did use the model class. We did use the styles manager class. Now it's time to use the survey ng class. And I told you before, why do we use this class? To render the survey on the UI. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Where do we want to render it? Now, here we created a div, right? And the ID of the div is survey container. That's going to hold our survey. So we're going to provide the ID of this div. And where is our model? It's in this survey variable. That's where our survey model is. You see that it has already been compiled for you by Stackblitz, and you're able to see the survey. but because it doesn't look very pretty. Well, as compared to what you see here, right? What the final output is. Okay, so this will happen, and it took me some time to figure this out. So remember the change we made in the angular.json file when we added the modernmin.css style? Now, once you make the change in this angular.json file, because we're not recompiling the code here every time, right? I'm not stopping the code and doing ng-serve again and again. So we need to refresh the entire Stackblitz platform from here to take that change into effect, to recompile the entire Angular code. Once that is done, you will see that the modern style has taken effect. And voila. You see how pretty the survey looks now? That is amazing. So we have this code here. We have our model prepared. We're also rendering our model on the UI. So we kind of have our survey prepared. But there's still something left right now. Yes, you still haven't hit the like and the subscribe button. Just do it right away. Okay, I trust you. I believe that you've done it. So I'm going to tell you the next step. So now we can let the user submit their responses to the survey, right? But what will happen after we take the responses? Well, where will this data go? And how do we even access this data? So that part is still left. Okay, let's tackle the next part. So now once we have the information from the user, let's take this and display it in an alert for now, for the sake of this example. But you understand that once you have the user information in a real world application, you will take this data and you will send it to your backend, right? To store it either in a database or a file system, but most probably a database. I hope so. And then you can process this data however you want. I'm going to go here. So I'm going to create a method called alert results, because that's what I want to do. So that's good, right? So we have our method here where we're passing a parameter, and the data that the user entered is in the data field of this object, the sender object. We're going to JSON stringify it, and then we're going to alert the results. That's what we wanted to do, right? That's what we said we wanted to do for the sake of this example. We just want to alert the data entered by the user. But this is not done yet because I still need to invoke this alert results method, which I'm going to do in the ng-on-init method, because again, as soon as the component is initialized, I want to render the survey. And as soon as the user enters the data, I want to alert that data. That's the goal of this application. So I'm going to call the onComplete property on the survey object here, which has this add method. And in this add method, I just want to call the add results method here. This is where I am invoking the alert results method here. And now once I have the survey displayed, the user enters the data, I collect the data, I access it like that. And I'm just going to display all the data as an alert for now. Okay, so let me just save everything up. So let's just open it up in a new tab. Hey, voila. So you have your survey ready with the alert functionality. Let's try it out. So I'm going to put in my first name, Kritika. I don't have a middle name, so I'm going to leave it blank. I'm going to put my last name, Sharma, female, contact. Let me just put it blank for now. And I'm going to submit the survey. And there you go. You have the alert displaying all the data that I entered in my survey. And I'm going to say thanks to you as well as soon as you hit the subscribe button. Okay, so looks like our code works just fine. And let me just try it one more time and just like not fill in some of the required fields. And there you go. Our is required field does work fine. We just used the SurveyJS NPM package to create our own survey here. You can use this package to create a quiz, a survey, a form, wherever you want. And again, as we discussed before, you can use it with different front-end applications, well, front-end frameworks and libraries like Vue, React, Knockout, jQuery, Angular. So you have all this information in the documentation of SurveyJS. If you want to check it out, I'm going to put it down in the description below. So that's it for this tutorial. Thank you for staying with me till the end. If you liked it, please don't forget to comment down below and tell us how you used the SurveyJS library. And also check out our other content on the YouTube channel. I promise if you found this helpful, you're going to find everything else helpful as well. And thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.